For those of you who are new to my space, my name is Hedy Shaw. I teach change makers to uncondition their bodies, their nervous systems, and their voices from systems built to keep us small, so we can stand, speak, and move through life with sovereign power. I've been in the movement and mindfulness space as a practitioner for about 10 years, and everything that I'm teaching today is based on my own personal experience of figuring out why things weren't working in my body. And over the years, I realized how much the mainstream media failed me and so many other people in my community by not giving us the full scope of what we need to know about our bodies. So we're talking a lot about the core today. For those of you who've been in these sessions for the past 3 weeks, you know I already talked plenty about the role of the breath and the diaphragm in how we carry ourselves in space and how good our posture is. So we're going deep into this conversation, even deeper into this conversation today. And our goal is to be able to become more like number one, that we get to a stacked body position, meaning that our rib cage, our diaphragm, and our pelvic floor has a beautiful relationship going on, and we can create beautiful intra-abdominal pressure. That's what we need to be able to move in the space. But before I go deeper into this conversation, I'm curious, what comes to your mind when I tell you engage your core? Tighten abs. I have a level 4 personal training certificate, and I went through a lot of different courses outside of the construct of personal training. There were rare places that taught me what is core engagement in its truest sense. And I want to say, like, now looking back, I'm like, why these are not taught in personal training schools or in physical therapy schools, so then we are more informed and educated on how everything works. So oftentimes I've seen 3 categories in how people associate with core engagement. People tend to suck the belly in. And that's probably one of the worst kind of core engagement, because what we're doing is we're actually preventing the diaphragm to do what it's supposed to do. Meaning when we inhale, the diaphragm goes down to create space for the breath. And then when we exhale, the diaphragm lifts up, that creates that, expansion and contraction in our system for better breathing mechanics and for the whole posture as a whole. Again, our breathing, our diaphragm is critical in how we carry ourselves in this space. So if you tend to suck your belly in the name of core engagement, please, I hope if you learn anything from today's session, it's going to be, don't do that. Keep the belly relaxed, because in that relaxedness, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor hopefully get to do what they're supposed to do, and especially with the trainings that you're going to receive today. Others think bracing is a form of core engagement, and oftentimes when they think about bracing, even like I remember in the past I would teach it like a few years ago before learning all of that, is like, imagine that I'm punching your belly and you're really getting that core engaged. Well, actually bracing needs to happen 360 degrees for that bracing to be effective. And we normally talk about bracing, or at least in my work, I start talking about bracing when I start training people to carry more load. Because when we go through normal day-to-day life and walking around, we don't need bracing. That actually takes away that natural rhythm of the body. But when we train, when we, like, let's say, lift heavy weights, yes, that's absolutely needed. But even what's being taught as bracing is an incomplete narrative of bracing. And the last one is people tend to hold their breath and become really tense. And I've seen that in gyms more than I can count. And oftentimes when we hold the breath, we become really fragile. When we hold the breath and carry weights and train, we become like something that can easily break, because there's not that flow of breath going on and that natural contraction in the core happening. How many of you have done crunches to strengthen your core? Or you've been told to do more crunches to strengthen your core and hopefully prevent any lower back pain? One of the issues with the mainstream way of teaching core is we see a lot of different variations of crunches and sit-ups and things like that. They're not strengthening your core, and here's why. So this is the rectus abdominal muscle, or oftentimes famous as six-pack. And so many people think, oh, if I have six-pack going on, then I have this perfect core, strong core. I can tell you how many people I worked with that they had six-pack, but they had a lot of lower back issues going on for them. And this is the most surface level core muscles we have. And it barely, like strengthening it or like making it pop looks good, but does it really support our core stability? No, not so much. And here's the other three more important abdominal muscles that we need to learn how to work. And these are, especially the last one, is the one that is responsible for that stability that I constantly talk about, and you'll see in a second. We've got the external oblique, we've got the internal oblique, and we've got the transverse abdominal muscles. So like first, we've got the rectus abdominals, and then if you go one layer deeper, it's external obliques, one layer deeper, internal obliques, and the deepest muscle is transverse abdominal. And for those of you who've been in this space before and you know how much I talk about the relationship between diaphragm and the pelvic floor, is because this transverse abdominal muscle is connecting everything from the diaphragm and from the rib cage all the way down to our pelvic floor. And that's why it's really important. It's like thin paper tissue that wraps, it feels like a corset that wraps you around. That's why when I teach breathing the way I've been teaching it for the past 3 weeks, for the pelvis class, for the upper body class, for the overall posture class, all is feeling that hugging in, feeling a little bit of that side abs coming in, but we're not doing any crunching. And today is no different. Especially when you learn the mechanics of breathing that I'm teaching, and today's breathing is a little bit different, especially for those of you who've been coming regularly. I wanted to change it up a little bit. Is like when you learn the mechanic and the core integration, I've seen it happen that people try to go into crunch thinking that's going to get them better core engagement. But the truth is we want to maintain the length of the spine when we engage the core. And that's why I'm not a big fan of the cueing of flattening the lower back. Let me show you what I mean by that. We've seen, again, I've been guilty of it a few years ago as well, that we would, especially people with lower back pain, we would ask them to push the lower back into the ground so then they would get a deeper core engagement. But in a healthy posture, we have natural curve in the spine. We do have the curve in the lower spine and then in the cervical spine. So in an optimal posture position, we want to be able to maintain the curve. Think about the shortest distance between two points is a straight line, right? So in order for us to have a longer spine, we want to be able to maintain that nice curve of the spine. That's why there's no point in today's session that I'm asking you to push the ground or creating any movement that creates that sense of shortening. And again, if you're crunching, we're also contributing to that shortening, right? So we want to stay out of the spine as much as we can. So the front, and ideally that 360-degree engagement happening to support our entire posture. Okay, right. Okay, so some of you have seen the photo of me. So originally, when I started this work and when I got introduced to this work, that's where I started. And at the time, I was strength training. I was doing all the mobility stuff that I learned from personal training school, from all the other courses that I've taken, and also the narrative that is running the show of like, oh, if you're tight, you stretch it out. But some of you have heard me say that if you get tight, you're not getting tight. Our body is not stupid. Our brain is not stupid. We're not getting tight for the sake of getting tight. We're getting tight because we lack stability. And we need that protection. So we get tight as a form of protection, not as a form that we're going to pull it, we're going to stretch it, and everything is going to work out. You see in this photo, like there's a completely different communication going on in my body right now than where I was in the past. So if we go back to this photo here, this was my posture. And then over time, with proper breathing, with better posture work and all of that, with core work, and also like the strength training through the lens of posture, that's where I got to be now. And in this position, I had a lot of tension in my mid back, a lot of pain in my neck and my upper back. And at the time, I was doing a lot of crunches, a lot of core exercises, but you see, it didn't take me that far, right? Compared to where I started finally feeling that my neck was freeing. My body was moving better. I could feel the ground. Like when I would go out for a walk, I would actually feel that connection with the floor a lot deeper. So for today's session, number one, I always say this, I cannot see you. I cannot modify everything according to your body type, but I often do my best to find exercises that are safe for the majority of people. But if something doesn't feel good when we go to the exercise session, please avoid them or modify them. Especially there are some side abs exercises that might be a little bit hard on the shoulders, but I'll do my best to give modification. But if that doesn't feel good, please don't push it through. And there's nothing in these exercises, like I said, you're crunching. So we want to maintain that nice length in the system. So again, these are the things that you will need for today's session. Okay, we're going into a lying position. Start lying down on your back. But for those of you, if you have a ponytail or anything like that, so we want to actually have the back of the head to be completely free so we can keep the airways nice and open, so for the breath to move through. For example, I would put my hair up to prevent any, issues with my mic. But at any point, if I go down and you can't hear me, okay, so please let me know in the comment section. But you can put the hair on top of your head so that's not obstructing anything in the neck. So we're gonna start with elevator breath. So feet nicely planted on the ground. Feel and sense the inner part of your feet. You could also put the yoga block between your legs from the shorter side. So then you can really allow the legs to nicely relax over top of the yoga block. So take a moment here, and we are starting with elevator breath. What I mean by elevator breath is we're filling up our entire torso from the base of the pelvic floor all the way up to right underneath our clavicle, right underneath our shoulder. Okay, soft inhale. Bring the air all the way to the top. You're feeling the expansion, and we're looking at 360-degree expansion. And then exhale out, open your mouth, exhale through the back of your throat. We're looking at 8 seconds long exhale here. You can find your own length of the exhale that is comfortable, because we always want to keep the inhale nice and soft. Let's say 8 seconds might be too much for you, stick with 5 seconds, but continue repeating that 5-second cycle every time, okay? So we're gonna go for that. Inhale and exhale again. Inhale from the base of your pelvic floor, filling up everything in the front, in the back, to the side, and bring the air up to your diaphragm. For those of you who have worked with the diaphragm, you're gonna feel it now. In the front, to the side, and the back, all the way up, 360-degree expansion of the rib cage, and then exhale out. When we're exhaling out, we're feeling that hug all around our core muscles. We're feeling everything coming in, hugging us in, feeling that engagement in the core on the exhale. And then we keep that going. Inhale. Exhale out. Ideally, allow the body to be as relaxed as possible, especially if you feel like you need to tense things up, you need to push through. This is an invitation for you to soften and allow the breath breathe you instead of you trying so hard for the breath. For reference point, you can have one hand on the lowest part of your belly, closer to your pelvic floor, and one hand on your chest, so you can feel everything moving. And the other thing you can do as a reference point, you can also use your fingers around the side of the body as you're moving the air up. For example, when I started doing this work, pelvic floor was easy for me, but the space between pelvic floor and the diaphragm, I had no awareness of it. So then that's where I would hold my finger around or my hands around to create that reference point so I can get more expansion going on there. So we're here for about 5 more rounds of breath to get the body warmed up, to get the core moving, to get that integration going here. One more time here. Soft inhale. So if you've had the yoga block between your legs, remove that. So we want to feel like the knees are slightly going out, not too much, just a little bit going out. So we're breathing in, filling up the torso completely, and we're going to lift the feet off the ground. Not a lot, I'm not here. So it's actually really close to the ground without anything changing in my lower spine. I'm not pushing down, I'm not overarching it. So I'm actually leading with what feels comfortable here. And as soon as I lift up, I exhale. But before we start, for those of you who have severe lower back issues, I know this is already too much for you. So I encourage you to stay in that position and just pretend that you're lifting your feet. We are not looking at getting the hip flexors working. That's why you're not lifting the shin too high up. We're actually keeping the shin pretty relaxed, so almost as if your legs are weightless. So we're going to start that. Inhale, create that whole body expansion, whole torso expansion through your breath. And when you're on the top, you're completely filled up. We're gently lifting the feet. Nothing changes in the lower back, nothing changes in the pelvis. And exhale out. We're gently dropping everything down. And going back to the conversation of maintaining the length of the spine, literally from where my ponytail is, I imagine that ponytail is pulling me up and I'm creating that nice length in the spine, okay? Not by pushing my neck down, so then I can't really breathe properly because my airways are blocked. So I'm keeping the chin nice and relaxed, but I'm also maintaining that nice length. So we're thinking about your bum and your head are moving away from one another when we are doing the lifting, and we're creating the front of the body contraction to keep everything nicely together. But again, if this is too much for you, I already told you like what the modifications are. Please don't push it, okay? So again, inhale, lift off, full exhale out. We're here for 2 more, gently drop it down. Inhale, fill up. Lift up, full exhale out. Gently drop it down. Inhale. Lift up, full exhale out. And slowly let it go. Take a moment here, rest. So now we're going for dead bug. So many of you probably have seen different variations of dead bug, but I teach it a little bit differently. So we're going first, again, you'll have your hands on your lower ribs. Again, we're continuing with that. Every time I say breathe in, you're feeling of your whole torso. Exhale nice and long. So before we do anything, we're going to take another breath in, fill up your whole torso. Exhale out. Breathe in again, and this time on the breath, lift the knees, bring them right over your pelvis. Exhale out. Again, inhale. Full exhale out. So now we inhale. On the in breath, I gently kick one leg out. I'm not going straight yet, so I'm actually keeping the knee nice and bent, and I'm keeping it pretty close to my body and feeling my heel almost touching the ground. And naturally the space between my pelvic floor and my rib cage increases, right? But I'm using my exhale to create that contraction again. Feeling that closure happening as you're holding that position for the length of your exhale. And then you inhale, bring it in. Exhale. Again, allow your exhale to create that closure on each side. Bring it back in. Inhale. Fill up your whole torso. Exhale. Feeling things coming together. Bring it back in. Inhale. I always hold that position until I'm completely empty and really feeling that integration of the core happening, and then I bring it all the way in. So keep that going for one more reps each side. Inhale, push out. Again, I'm not pushing my spine into the ground. I'm actually allowing the core to take over. Beautiful work. Rest here. You should feel things firing up. And I know some people tend to feel a lot in their hip flexors for these exercises. That's an indication that the core is not integrating properly, that you feel the need to use the hip flexors for that. So if that's you, I would actually really start with just keeping the feet down and pretend that you're lifting. So you can really get the deeper core tissues working first and then going there. So now we're gonna pick up our yoga block here. So you're gonna bring one leg in, and then the opposite elbow is gonna go and create that pressure on top of the yoga block, okay? But what is really important is I'm not rolling to the side. If you tend to be stiff and this is really causing that rolling to the side in the body, so then maybe you can drop the yoga block and just create that nice reach instead. So then you're not rotating to one side, okay? But if you feel comfortable having your elbow reaching, so we're creating that expansion in the back rib. Also, we're not bringing the knee too far in to get all the hip flexors working. We actually stay relatively over the pelvis here. So the other arm nice and open towards the ceiling. My eyes are nice and forward towards the ceiling. We softly inhale, filling up your whole torso. But obviously, because of the positioning of the arm, we're feeling more expansion on that side that we're reaching. Exhale out. Softly inhale again. Nice long exhale out. We're here for 3 more. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. Remember the conversation we had about the length of the spine? We are not crunching here. We still want to feel that ponytail pulling us up, and we're maintaining that nice length in the spine. Another breath here, soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. And you can slowly relax. We're going to the other side. Reaching, you might notice a significant difference from one side to another side. And again, if you've been in the sessions, we talked about the positioning of the heart and how that impacts the left over the right, and how on some sides we feel extremely more limited, and we want to create a space through our breath in those areas. So again, the head is nice and centered. If you're rolling too far to one direction, instead choose this position or this position. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. Keep that going. Last breath here, soft inhale. And you can slowly let it go, take a moment, rest here. You're gonna come back to the dead bug variation, but for now, you can come up. We're going into a tabletop position. And here is when we need the wall space. So getting to that tabletop position, you're gonna have one arm on the wall, thinking about, if you've been in the pelvis class, how we dig the foot down. The same thing, we're digging the hand towards the ground. We're not looking at hyper locking our elbow. The elbow is nice and soft. And the bottom hand, we're pushing the ground. Let me show you from this angle. So this is gonna be the position that we're going in for. If you don't wanna feel a lot of pressure through the elbow here. So we wanna actually keep the elbow nice and soft and create a lot more pressure through the inner part of the hand. So we go with the same breathing mechanics, soft inhale. Like here, what we don't wanna see is feeling that you're getting into extension. We want to maintain a pretty neutral spine position. If you have a lot of arch going on in your lower spine, then that would be encouraged to have the pelvis tucked under you. So we want to create that cylinder between the rib cage and the pelvic floor, right? So soft inhale here. Nice long exhale out. Soft inhale again. One of the ways to know how soft your inhale is can you inhale without the sound? So keeping the inhale really soft, that the breath is breathing you instead of you trying to breathe. One last breath here. Nice long exhale out. And we're going to the other side. If you have wrist issues, you can always use a small towel underneath your wrist to create that elevation that might take the edge off a little bit. But we're not going to be here for that long. So another 3 rounds of breath on the other side. So again, if you look at my posture, I'm not extending. I'm not also in a cat position. So I'm pretty neutral here, even though I'm working hard to push through the inner part of my hand to feel that shoulder blade, that working hand. The shoulder blades is coming over to the side, away from the spine, and creating that expansion on the back. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. When I continue chatting and cueing, feel free to go with the rhythm of your breath. You don't have to wait for me to cue on the breathing. 2 more breaths here. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. And you can rest here. Now we're going for side abs exercise. So you want to have the elbow right underneath the shoulders and then the legs nice and square here. And we want to tuck that pelvis under us, okay? So then the top knee is slightly more forward. For some of you, just pushing the ground here, arms reaching, inhale, fold, exhale out. That gives you a lot of side abs engagement. And especially if you have shoulder issues, that's enough for you. Soft inhale, nice long exhale out. And we want to feel that contraction going on the side abs closer to the ground. Soft inhale again. Nice long exhale out. If you have sensitive shoulders, you can always rest in between, or you could create a lot of pressure through the other hand on the ground instead of having it straight, having it this way, so you can still push the ground through the elbow here. Like, we're constantly looking at having the shoulder blades move away from the spine, so for us to create that nice open back for that back expansion. Okay, soft inhale, nice long exhale out. For those of you who feel comfortable here, then we create that nice reach. We're lifting up, but remember, I'm keeping that pelvis nicely tucked under. Soft inhale, nice long exhale out. So if you want to show you from this angle, so this is the positioning that I'm in. So I'm keeping the ground, pushing really hard. You can start with 1 reps of breath each time and then rest in between. And then over time, we want to be able to increase our capacity to continue holding that. Nice and relax. Soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. We're flipping to the other side. Again, if you're feeling it in the neck, if you're feeling it in the shoulder, stay with the first version. Or push the ground away like this. So then continue working with the exhale. Don't go into the pain. Stay right behind the pain. So for those of you who are ready to lift off, keeping that pelvis nicely tucked under you, soft inhale, nice long exhale out. So we start with wherever that we feel comfortable and start building and progressing from there. So one of the things that I always teach my clients is start with whatever you can with this exercise and slowly build up to 5 rounds of breath holding in that position. And on the exhale, you really want to feel the rib cage coming closer to the pelvis, and you're feeling that side abs working nice and strong. 1 more here. Inhale as you lift up. Exhale while you're holding there. And relax. So now we're going to go back to the dead bug. I'm going to give you a few more variations of the dead bug, but if the first version was difficult already, then stick to that. You don't need to progress if something is already making you work hard enough. So we're going to go back. Inhale, fill up your whole torso. From the pelvic floor all the way up to right underneath your shoulders, 360 degrees. Full exhale out. On the next inhale, we're lifting the knees right over the pelvis. You can even drop the knees if you feel a lot of your hip flexors working, okay? And the first version that I introduced is you inhale, Exhale. Getting that nice side abs integrating. Bring the leg in on the inhale. And then exhale. And then again, inhale and push out. And on the push out, we exhale. Bring it in. Inhale. Push out. Exhale. We're going to hold it long enough that you can completely empty yourself, completely exhale, feeling that side abs integrating, feeling that rib cage and that pelvic floor, creating that connection there. Bring it in. Exhale again. We're not pushing the lower back down. We're not lifting the lower back up. We're letting everything being controlled and contracted through the front of the body, 360 degrees. Inhale, push out. Now, for those of you who want to take it up a notch, so now we're going to go opposite arm, opposite leg. Inhale, move the opposite arm and opposite leg and exhale. Hold in the bottom until you're completely empty. So bring it back in, push out. Again, for those of you who have lower back stuff going on, I always focus on the breathing. Go back to this first exercise we've done, just pretending that you're lifting the leg. That will be more beneficial for you and make you ready for progression. Exhale. One last one. Inhale in the middle. Exhale as you go out. Completely empty. Feeling everything coming together. You might even feel your butt kicking in when you're completely exhaled. Bring it in. So for the fun of it, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, if you want to make it even harder, we're going to go same side. So we're going both sides on the right. Exhale. We're forcing that moving away of the rib cage on the spine, and the pelvic floor, and then really focusing on the exhale. Inhale in the middle, move away, exhale. Bring it back in. Inhale one last time, each side. Inhale, exhale. Beautiful work, rest. So we're resting here for a couple of seconds. The last exercise, we're going to go back against the wall, hands on the wall. If this was hard for you already, so stick with that. You want to keep that nice relaxed spine. We're not extending, we're not flexing, we're right in the middle. Again, if you have arched lower back, keep that pelvis nicely tucked under you. So if this was difficult for you, so stick with this. But for those of you who want to make it a little bit harder, or maybe a lot harder, this is where we're going to go. So we first going to start with soft inhale. Nice long exhale out. On the next breath in, you're going to tuck those toes under, push the ground away from you, lift your knees and have it hover. Full exhale out here. Slowly drop it down. Soft inhale. Lift the knees off the ground. Nice and relax. So we don't want to go into extension again. That's really important. So we want to create that nice strength, the strong cylinder in our spine. So we're going to go to the other side. If this position was comfortable, stay with it. Soft inhale, nice long exhale out. We want to aim for 8 seconds exhale. For those of you who want to progress, inhale, lift the knee off the ground, full exhale up. Gently drop it down. One more time, inhale, lift up. Beautiful work, rest. So now we're finishing up the session with the position of neutrality. And Cecilia, I know you asked for a cue on straight spine. This is what I normally use to create that nice length in the spine without us becoming robotic. So if you have access to a chair, sit on a chair, feet planted. If you don't have access to the chair, it's okay if you sit on the ground. But ideally have it nice and symmetrical if you can. You might still feel your heart rate being, a little bit higher up. Give yourself a few exhale here. And as you exhale, noticing the weight of your body coming down towards the ground. Feel the sensation of your feet, your bum on the ground. And really feeling that connection downward. And is there any tension that you can allow melting down to the ground beneath you? And imagine there's a string attached to the top of your head, about where my ponytail is. And imagining a bird or the divine is coming over, pulling you up towards the ceiling. Not through the chin, not tensing up, really relaxed pull upward. And when you feel that length being created, can you relax yourself into this pull? Obviously, I prefer this exercise seated on a chair or in a standing position, but because I didn't suggest the chair, so we're gonna roll with whatever we have available. So feel that length and feel the weight of your body going downwards, and allow yourself to relax in the space in between. What do you need to change, or how do you need to move to feel more relaxed? We're not looking at the straight spine, we're not looking at a robotic body, we're looking at a relaxed body. When we're relaxed, we're ready to move. So is there anything that you need to adjust to feel a little bit freer, to feel a little bit more relaxed? And if you can, slowly transition to a standing position. We're going to finish this exercise in a standing position. Feet nicely planted on the ground. Have your knees nice and soft. We're going to connect back to that pull above us while we're feeling the weight of the body going downwards. When you start feeling that length being created, feeling it going down right in the middle of your body, all through the inner part of your legs, all the way down to the inner part of your feet. When you feel that whole posture length being created, can you relax into it? When we relax, we allow the rest of our body, our limbs, to move effortlessly. The breath moves through us a lot more effortlessly. Now, if you were to give yourself permission to relax even more, what do you need to change or shift to feel even more relaxed? And slowly bring gentle little motion into your fingertips, into your toes, and slowly start moving your eyes very slowly around the room that you're in. Maybe you're pausing on certain areas of the room that you're in, and then slowly moving the eyes around. And whenever you're ready, you can return back to the live. And let me know, how are you feeling? I want to know how did your core engagement feel like for you? Which one was the one that you liked the most? And most importantly, which one is the one that you're going to continue doing? Because only doing it once won't necessarily make a massive difference, right? It will give us new inputs, new understanding of our bodies. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to create that transformation in our spine, in our whole posture.